today's start list is made up of the world's top-ranked competitors. Hamish Carter, world number 1. Watch out for McCormack, 97 world champion, and the defending champion Simon Lessing wears number 7. An electric atmosphere hangs over the start of the men's world championship competition. This is an event that many have been waiting to see around the world. Defending champion Simon Lessing going for his 5th world title in this, the 10th anniversary of World Championship Triathlon for the International Triathlon Union. Well, as expected, it will be a very bumpy start, and Steve, all eyes will be upon the swim specialists, but of course, 1 or 2 of them absent, including the likes of Bignet, who has not been selected for the French team.
I think we're going to see a very different scenario here. We've got used to seeing Craig Walton come out at the front, Benjamin Sanson from France, and Britain's Richard Stannard. And none of those 3 are racing here today. And really, there has been such a big gap in the previous World Cup events that I think we could well see a lot of the athletes stand together. Perhaps the favourite has to be Hamish Carter. He's been coming out 4th, 5th when all the big 3 swimmers have been there.
Well, you're absolutely right, because Hamish Carter has got off to a good early lead. Looking to go with him is one of the French swimmers, Laurent Jonsal. We see Shane Reed and Craig Watson there. But Hamish Carter, who is the world number 1, Barry, hasn't had the best of preparations for this World Championship, but looks to be focused at the start of this one.
Well, Hamish, is, you know, when you have a year when you haven't had a lot of victories and you're still in the top 4 or 5 in the points for that year, that's an indication how internationally talented this man is. I know that he would love to finish the year off with a victory. He's never been able to get to the top of the podium at the World Championships, even though he's been the IOC President Cup winner. So I know he would love to finish this year off with a victory, particularly
closely bunched together. We saw how difficult it was for the women in transition. We've got a lot more male athletes here, and I think we may well be seeing problems, or certainly some very, very tight conditions.
Well, Hamish Carter lies in 2nd position, and in the early stages, your money must be with him. Twice on the podium in World Championships gone by, and the perfect preparation for these Worlds with that win in Hungary, round 7 of the World Cup Tour. Out of the water now come the men, and Laurent Jonsal has built himself up a comfortable lead to get into transition nice and early, and also without the bumping and barging of the masses behind him. Hamish Carter will be 2nd out of the water, and also good to see Alek Rukasev, the Russian now racing for the United States of America, a former 1989 Russian swim champion, 3rd out of the water. Shane Reed for New Zealand is also amongst them. Craig Watson for New Zealand is also amongst them. So Team New Zealand getting 3 into transition nice and early, and that is good news. Then come the masses behind them. We pick out Simon Lessing there, just at the back of the main group. He is very much in the chase. Rito Hug is also there for Switzerland. And we can also see Martin Kanavik of the Czech Republic. There is Hamish Carter, 1st in and looking to be 1st away. There is Simon Lessing, the defending world champion, number 7. Not too rushed, not too panicked, getting out and staying out of trouble. Also looking to go with him is Miles Stewart and Greg Bennett, both coming into transition together. 2 Australians have had a superb build-up to these World Championships, and definitely names to watch out for. Andrew Johns for Great Britain goes away, the man who won the World Cup prior to these World Championships in Lausanne, and really is brimming with confidence here in Montreal. Away they go. There'll be a small group that has the advantage over the main pack. The 1997 world champion Chris McCormack, he's also looking to get into the mix, a man who really does like to ride his bike with aggression and really will the others to go with him. So it's looking very busy out there, but Barry, one has the feeling that there is one big group about to form, because Carter and those first few who got away early just have around about a 20-second lead.
Well, the first 30 or 40 seconds of this race is going to be very, very important. If a pack can get away, they may be able to stay away for the entire race. But if they get caught up, we may be looking at a race with 40 or 50 athletes all on the very same chase pack.
Well, the likes of Chris McCormack, 45th out of the water, but still in with a chance of joining that big group that Barry Shipley was describing. And as you can see, all heading on to the Jacques Villeneuve Formula One racetrack. They're very close indeed, and once they get into their rhythm and they get into their pace, we feel that there will be one big group to watch. Heading into lap 2, and Chris Hill takes them along this group, now looking like they will be joined by the huge pack just behind. Basically, these are the men who are out the water in the top 15, but most importantly had that lucky escape from the chaotic transition area. But it's not to be a lead pack and a chase pack. It's more than likely, Barry, that this will become one huge group as the cyclists behind draw ever closer. There looks to be around about a 6 to 8 second gap.
But clearly in this lead pack right now, there's nobody who wants to be the general. Generally, you look at somebody like Greg Bennett, somebody who's going to push the pace, a Craig Walton who wants to go off the front. Bennett isn't in there right now. Craig Walton is not here, and so we've got some swimmers who right now are satisfied at working hard, but not that little bit of extra effort that may pay off to get a breakaway.
Well, no breakaway means one huge pack will form, and it's something that we had predicted and thought may come true during this competition. The smooth track of the Jacques Villeneuve circuit means high speeds and the opportunity for everybody to be pretty equal. The bike skills of some of the tight technical turns in a World Cup competitions gone by, not required here. But Barry, as we said with the women's competition, where we saw Anna Misova fall for Russia, with so many cyclists so tightly bunched up together on these turns, with this huge pack just a few moments away from forming, you really do have to be careful, particularly in the chicane.
There's no question. For me right now as a coach, it's one of the biggest concerns that I have looking out at my athletes in this course, because if one athlete makes an error, they may be going for some water, they may lose a little focus and concentration. A dozen athletes could go down and their entire season could be ended right here.
Well, Hamish Carter is still very much in the chase and chooses to stay at the front and possibly looking to stay out of trouble in these tight turns. It's now 2 or 3 seconds and we see them arriving. Here they come now, one big pack, and amongst that big pack is the likes of Greg Bennett, Miles Stewart, Brad Bevan. The might of Australia is now with the leaders once again. The British boys are there, including Simon Lessing and Andrew Johns. And one hates to say it, but this could become a 9-lap procession, albeit with some very skillful bike riding, and it'll come down to the 10K runners once again.
Well, one of the things some of the athletes in here have to make a choice. Do they want to try to burn some of the legs off these other athletes? Sometimes you can do that by putting in a little bit of a sprint, letting the pace come back down again, putting another sprint. We can see right there's Chris McCormack, and once again, as he showed in Newfoundland, he's probably going to go to the front of this field and want to try to push it and burn the legs of some of those other athletes.
Well, surely, Barry, one or two of the athletes, and it looks to be Kevin Carter for the United States of America, who's trying to make a breakaway. Now, he's probably not trying to make a breakaway with a bid to winning this competition, just to get a bit of space in this incredibly tight transition area. It really was quite chaotic in the swim, and one of the cyclists, or 2 or 3 of them, just trying to get to the front to avoid the bumping and barging going into that final run section.
But you can see a couple of the athletes now trying to get right up to the very front, because it's very, very important. Greg Bennett right there, he has shown. Chris McCormack, both of those guys are some of the best in the world when it comes to pushing the pace on the bike and then getting off onto the run. The biggest concern that they're going to have, however, if they can't get that breakaway, later on they may have a little extra fatigue in their legs when some of the athletes who stayed at the back of the pack may have fresher legs as they get out onto the run. But right now we're probably in excess of 50 athletes. As you can take a look back, Hamish Carter, also well known for pushing the pace, going to try to make a breakaway here over the next 5 laps. See some of the other athletes here. We can see Carter now. He seems to have about a 15 to 20 second lead and continuing to build on it, but the other athletes are at least a minute better, and if they can keep within 30 to 40 seconds, they're probably not going to be worried. Carter looking over his shoulder to see if anybody's coming. Right there, Chris McCormack, he knows that he's not that far down and they're well into the course right now. Brad Bevan starting to push the pace on the Australian side.
Well, this is a fantastic shot because there's Brad Bevan, Greg Welsh and Chris McCormack all having a shot. Are you worried about the American going? No, we're not. They are in complete control here, and this is Team Australia once again, as we saw with the women's event, starting to dominate. There's 3 of them at the front. They're looking in complete control, and the communication, Barry, is very impressive. Running shoes on, hook up or rack up the bike without this. The masses coming in. There's now over 60 cycle riders heading for the narrowest transition area we've seen all season on the World Cup, possibly the narrowest transition area ever in 10 years of World Championship triathlon, and this really will become a bun fight, and the experience really will come into play for some of the well-known triathletes in the final transition going into the 10K run. But hats off for Kevin Carter. He's made his name, got a bit of exposure for his sponsors. He comes into the transition first, and then they come flying in behind him. Andrew Johns has got a good position to get into his bike rack there. Also Jan Rahula spotted from the Czech Republic. But it's Kevin Carter, the American from Colorado Springs, who has got the opportunity to get in and out first, and in come the masses. This will be a very tight and tricky scenario.
Oh, this is truly panic right now. If you take a look, if you're in the middle of that, you've got to be concerned. I can see Miles Stewart coming in right there. There's Hamish Carter. Simon Lessing's in there, so all of the athletes, but this certainly looks like a subway, and it's morning traffic time right now as these athletes are trying to find their bikes, trying to find their shoes and get out there. You can see Hamish trying to run throughout the bikes to get out. Dmitry Gaag right there is out. Chris McCormack, Lessing, Miles Stewart, Greg Bennett. So most of the major players are now have made their way and heading out of the transition zone, but it is very tight. Gilberto Gonzalez near at the pack. And right there, if you take a look, Oscar Galindez is running back and forth. He cannot find where his shoes are at.
It's like the rush hour trying to get onto the tube station. It really is incredible. Helmets strewn all over the place, and it really has been a fight of elbows. They're all escaping. There's Miles Stewart with Rito Hug of Switzerland trying to get away and trying to settle into their pace now. Let's just take a look at the confirmed fastest bike times. Oscar Galindez for Argentina, then Kevin Carter, actually the second fastest, although into transition first. And good to see the oldest man on the block, Rob Burrell, third quickest on the bike. Well, they're already settling into their stride. On the far left of your screens, we see Miles Stewart for Australia, and on the far right, the defending champion is Simon Lessing. Stewart there, number 11, settling into a good rhythm. Himself a former world champion back in 1991. But don't write him off, he was the bronze medalist last year in Lausanne. Going with him just behind is Dmitry Gaag, and also good to see Greg Welch there, also looking to stay in the mix. Switzerland in the chase with Rito Hug just behind Greg Welch, and we're just trying to see who else is coming in a shot, making his mark, opening those long legs, that long stride pattern, and starting to make his mark nice and early, Barry. Simon Lessing, the defending champion.
Hamish Carter now into this pack. You can see beside him Chris Hill, and these athletes right away are going to start to have to ask himself the question, is this pace too fast? Am I going out too hard? Because some of the athletes may just be caught up in the enthusiasm of the crowd and seeing that transition take off. The other side of the coin, if you don't go now, you're likely not going to have that ability to bridge back up later in the race. So many of these athletes right now are trying to get a sense of how far past that red line they're really going.
Well, they're all stride for stride, rounding the turn, and Simon Lessing has fought his way to the front. Dmitry Gaag for Kazakhstan is now second. Tucked in behind him is Andrew Johns, winner of the last World Cup competition, coming into these Worlds, and then we see Miles Stewart just behind the second Brit in fourth position. The group had marked their authority on the run course. The defending world champion Simon Lessing forced a fast pace, but failed to break any of this group. In a scenario unfamiliar to Lessing, he was matched stride for stride by Dmitry Gaag, Miles Stewart and Andrew Johns. With no change to the pace or the leader, victory really could belong to anyone. Lessing continues to try and shake them off, but Dmitry Gaag, Miles Stewart and Andrew Johns are sticking with him, and this is a scenario that he finds himself a little uncomfortable with, Barry.
But when you take a look, Simon Lessing's best races have always been when he's been able to break away and certainly control the pace over the last 2 or 3 kilometers. The fact that he's got these other athletes around him right now, he generally does not race the best when he cannot control the pace. The fact that he's got these other athletes right now must be very disconcerting when he still has another 4 kilometers to go and they are pushing the pace.
Well, he's splitting the pack up now and they're starting to spread apart. There are just 4 with him. Good to see number 21 still keeping in touch. That's Martin Konarvek of the Czech Republic, has raced very lightly this season and is on track for a very good finish indeed. But the medals will come from those leading 4. We've got Andrew Johns, Simon Lessing, Dmitry Gaag and Miles Stewart as Eastern European hopes are kept alive with Konarvek, and he is really pushing it out well.
Last year, Martin was 5th place, so you know that that guy comes up big on very important races. But there's the runners in the field, that next bunch. Hamish Carter, Simon Whitfield from Canada, Hunter Kemper and Greg Welch, Chris McCormack. So some brilliant runners in that chase pack. If anybody fails here, they'll be coming up from behind.
Well, Lessing tries to drop the leaders once again and pick up the pace. You can see him putting the liquid on there. It's a lot hotter than many of us had expected for this September day here in Montreal. Well, we're reaching the closing stages of the 4th lap, and it's down to these 2 men. It's Great Britain versus Kazakhstan, and Simon Lessing picks up the pace once again. And Barry, this looks to me Lessing's race. He looks to have the strength. He's striding out. Miles Stewart drops 3rd, and Andrew Johns 4th.
There's no question. When you take a look, Simon Lessing knows the brilliant sprinting capacity of Miles Stewart. He does not want to be with him with 200 meters to go. Miles won the World Championship in 1991 by doing that, and you can see right here, Lessing now starting to put the hammer down. They're less than 500 meters from the finishing line. Miles Stewart far enough back that that sprintability is not likely to be a factor.
Well, it's looking like Lessing has got his 5th world title, but here comes Gaag. Goodness me, the Kazakhstan athlete is coming back at Simon Lessing. He's got a much quicker frequency in his stride pattern, and he's drawn clear. Lessing cannot believe it. Kazakhstan has a world champion. Dmitry Gaag has the speed, has the strength. Lessing cannot answer. Lessing cannot go with him. And what a surprise. An amazing shock here in Montreal, because Dmitry Gaag has taken the 1999 World Triathlon Championship. Lessing turns his head, hoping to hold on for silver, What a superbly timed run from Gaag, who now can afford to slow right down into the line. 400 metres to go. He saw that Lessing was tiring, changed up a gear and takes gold. The first time ever an athlete from Asia has won a World Championship gold medal in triathlon. Gaag is exhausted, but what a finish. Lessing cannot believe it in taking the silver, and Miles Stewart looks to hold on and bring the bronze for Australia. An amazing finish to this World Championship competition. How about that, Barry? We could not have predicted that finish.
You've got a four-time world champion coming down to the finishing line. You've got to believe you put your money on him. But Dmitry Gaag was a man today. Andrew Johns, the most consistent man of the year, coming in across the line in fourth. In fifth place right there, a brilliant job. Rita Hugh from Switzerland and Simon Whitfield, Hunter Kemper from the United States. The two young guys coming through big.
Well, confirmation of the result. Dmitry Gaag, the surprise winner here in Montreal. Lessing, the runner-up. Miles Stewart and Andrew Johns in fourth position. As pointed out by our expert in the box, a fantastic sprint finish for the lower places, with Simon Whitfield seventh for Canada, Hunter Kemper for the USA eighth.
Yeah, I think the race went pretty much as I thought it would. You know, it was pretty close on the swim. Everybody came out together, and then the bike was really just a question of going around. I knew on this type of course that nobody was going to get away. I knew it was going to come down to the run, so and obviously we took it out. Everybody took it out really fast, and one by one people started to fall off the pace. And I kept the pace quite hard all the way through. I was pretty much pulling everyone through. At about the last turnaround, you know, I managed to make up a little bit of a lead, and I thought, right, that's it. I put in a bit of a spurt over the last kilometre, but Dmitry, you know, basically caught me up and sprinted past me in the end. There's nothing I could do about it.
Exhausted athletes now bringing this World Championship competition to a close. A gripping event full of surprise and determination in triathlon's 10th anniversary of World Championship events, as all of these athletes will go boldly forward to the 2000 Olympics. And perhaps the last word of the day from the surprise winner, Dmitry Gaag.
I'm world champion, Kazakhstan.
Fantastic, Dmitry. Congratulations. Well done.